This is Mario Andretti, and you are listening to Below the Yellow Line.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Below the Yellow Line. We've gotten to interview a lot of people from a lot of different racing backgrounds on this show, but one of my favorite, categories of interviews to do are with those young drivers coming up through the ranks. They haven't quite made it to superstardom yet, but you just have a feeling that they're kind of well on their way. We may have one of those drivers with us in our virtual studio today. Laci, thank you for joining the show. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. My name is Laci Ferno. I am from North Carolina. I'm 19 years old, and I come from dirt racing. I race outlaw karts, micros, and I did some midget stuff last year. And then this year, we're trying to race some late models. So, going to be a big transition, but I'm pretty excited about it. So, yeah.
Great to have you on the show, and it is an exciting time in your career, but we're going to go back from the present all the way back to the start. How did you get your start in racing? What was the start of your career like?
Yeah, so I started racing when I was 14. I was an old lady. I didn't start until I was 14. So I started off in intermediate outlaw karts because I thought Kyle Larson was cool. So I wanted to go that dirt route. And I started racing intermediate outlaw karts at Millbridge Speedway. And I kind of started in the middle of 2018. It was like July-ish. So it was kind of like in the middle of a season. So my first full-time season was until 2019. And I did intermediates again, and then opens, and then micros. So yeah, it was fun. It was crazy. I had no idea what I was getting into, but I absolutely loved it. A lot different than basketball because that's what I played for that. So I loved it. It was great.
Well, basketball is an awfully fast-paced game, and I'm not sure there's any more literally fast-paced sports on this planet than auto racing itself. And you had a rather fast-paced start to your career. You say you started kind of in the summer of 2018. You got your first win in your 14th start, unless you're somebody named Shane Van Gisbergen, and that doesn't happen very often that you get your first win in anything that early. What did that feel like, and was that kind of your I made it moment early in your career?
Oh yeah, I thought I was like super good. I was like, oh yeah, this is great. I honestly, the outlaw carts are pretty wide open, so it wasn't too much about throttle control. So once I realized I can go wide open, it was on. So did I know what I was really doing? Not really. It was like kind of sketchy, yeah, but was I fast? Yes, I was fast. So I was once I kind of got more like I guess more in control and like knew how to pass and do more all that kind of stuff. That's really when it took a turn. Like about I'd say probably about 2 months into racing, I started winning heat races and stuff, and I was like, okay, we can hit race. If we can win a heat race, we can win a feature. So I went out, and then the biggest race of 2018, they had the KKM give back race for at Millbridge for the opens before it was with micros, and I was an intermediate then. So there was probably like 20 cars, and I finished second in that race, and I was like, dang, we were close. Like we were real close on that one. So then we ended up running the winter series with I switched over to a Phantom Outlaw car. I was helping them develop the intermediate chassis because they came from like go-karts, like D&Q stuff. So they had the box stocks and they were trying to get into more intermediates and opens. So I was the only intermediate. And then I think Max McLaughlin ran the open. Sometimes Nick Hoffman would, but I think mainly Max did it. And I almost won the first race, but I jumped the start too many times, had to go back. So, and then the second race, I ended up winning. So it was great. I absolutely loved it, and I was excited for like 3 months. So,
Understandable. And you say it felt sketchy. They always say loose is fast. So, if your car feels sketchy, but you're still able to control it, you're usually going to be pretty fast. And obviously you were. Your team now is a very special team. I'm not going to try to pronounce the name because I don't want to get it wrong, but it's a team with a goal, obviously, to be fast, win races, right? That's the goal of any race team. But their goal is also to have an all-women run organization by 2025, and that's next year. That's a pretty big goal. That's a pretty big deal. How involved were you with that, and how cool is it to be a part of a team that's not only trying to win races, but also trying to make steps that not a lot of race teams have?
yeah, so Abacus, they the guy who owns the team, he's an accountant. So that's kind of the whole like Abacus thing because they use abacuses, I cannot say that word in math. So and the accounting kind of stuff. So that's kind of where the name came from. And yeah, so in 2022, I was reaching out to a lot of people trying to find opportunity to race with them because I had a little bit of sponsor money, but I didn't have a lot of money, and I was trying to find any ride anywhere to get going, try to get going. And I DM'd Abacus on Instagram and was like, hey guys, y'all need a driver? And it was more professional than that. But I DM'd them that, and they sent me Brent Cox's phone number, and we talked on the phone about hour and a half that day, and then he called me back a little later and came up with the idea about the women's development team. And I was super excited. We ended up running 6 races last year, and it went really good. I think it was a super fun experience. And then this year, I've totally switched gears and going asphalt late model racing. So I'm trying to run with Lee Falk this year, and I think Abacus, they're also going to be running. I think they're racing sprint cars full time this year and USAC Nationals, I think. So they got their own deal going, and I got my deal going. So I'm excited. I'm excited to see where they go with it, and I'm excited to see where I go. So
Both of y'all making strides, and you talked about you're going over to asphalt. How big of a transition do you think that's going to be going from dirt to asphalt? How long do you think it'll take you to acclimate? And what are your overall goals this year? Are you aiming small, or are you aiming for the big trophy here right off the bat?
yeah, so I think with me, the craziest thing to me is everything feels like slow. Like when I was driving, like they feel fast. Don't get me wrong. Like they're fast, but you're just like so like like that's the best way to explain it. Versus like boom. So I think with me, the biggest thing will just be getting used to having a spotter and how big the car is. Because I've never raced anything where you could put your arm out and still be in the car. So definitely the size of the car will probably take a little bit for me to get used to. But I felt pretty confident the few times I tested, just like I wasn't scared of it pretty much. So I think once I do it more consistently, hopefully I'll be able to pick it up pretty fast. And I think my biggest goal is to just like realistically, my biggest goal is to just be competitive. I want to be competitive every single race. I don't want to be like a back runner or nothing. And I mean, like if I can win, like that's great. But I think the main thing is I just want to be super competitive and not just like, oh, she's new, she's gonna be in the back. So I definitely think I can do that if I race it very consistently. And yeah.
Good goal to have, and if you're competitive consistently, you're probably going to find yourself in victory lane a few times as well. Off the track now, you run an organization called Ripping for a Cure, and I always love that phrase whenever somebody talks about it in racing, ripping the wall, ripping the low line, whatever it may be. It sounds fast, but just tell us a little bit about that organization and what it supports and what it means to you to be a part of that.
Yeah, so Ribbon for a Cure, I started that in honor of my dad. When I started racing, I was 14. I've always wanted to do it, but my mom did not she liked racing, but she just did not want me to do it. So yeah, she didn't want me to do it. And then in 2017, my dad, he had a heart attack. So he's good now though, but that kind of was the reason she let me go racing, because she's kind of hoping it was like a phase and I kind of grow out of it. And she's like, yeah, y'all two can go racing, make memories, blah, blah, blah. And then, yeah, it's kind of stuck. So I always knew with my racing, I wanted to somehow like honor, like kind of like represent that in a way, like, because that's the whole reason I am racing, is from that very like bad thing happening and we turn into a good thing. So my whole goal with Rippin is definitely to grow it and help raise awareness for heart disease in both the like community, like around us, and as well as like the racing community, because heart disease is huge, like it's very big. So I help teach like elementary school kids, middle school kids, some high school kids about heart disease. And as I grow Rippin for a Cure, I want to also have a branch to where it can support local racers like me to help kind of keep them racing. So that's farther down the road. I got to work on that some, but that's the overall goal for it, is to help raise awareness and as well as help drivers who are like me. So I think it's possible. I got to focus on a little more. I'm very busy, so I'm a world class procrastinator, so I got to kind of work on a little more. But yeah, I think it's a pretty cool thing. It's definitely going to grow more as I work on it more. And yeah, that's why I started it with my dad.
It's really cool, and it's cool that it has overarching purposes too. Of course, raising awareness for heart disease and also helping out other drivers. And I love that you turned such a negative thing and spin it into a positive thing. That's a really cool thing, and also it's just a really good thing to have something like that, raising awareness about something like heart disease and turning it into a positive. That's not something everybody can do. And I relate to you on the procrastinator thing. I procrastinate a lot, so yeah, I feel you there. We haven't talked a whole lot about your future in racing yet, and that's why I was saving it here for our last question, because that's what I like to ask a lot of these young drivers. And not every driver has it planned out. Some drivers have everything planned out, down to the second, down to a T. What are your future plans or future goals for racing? Do you want to see yourself racing stock cars in the future in a league like NASCAR open wheel? What does the future look like for Laci Ferno on maybe a national stage in racing?
Yes, so I think my overall goal is definitely I want to make it to Cup. That's my overall goal. So I think as the more I start racing, the more I race the late model and the more I start racing other things, I think I think that's my overall goal, and try to race like ARCA, trucks, Xfinity, all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, it does depend on sponsorships. So I do a lot of my own sponsor stuff. So it's going to all depend on what I can come up with and what I can work out. But I definitely think it's possible to start moving up within the ranks. I'm hoping to this year be able to race a late model a bunch with Lee and kind of use that and develop in the asphalt world, and maybe try to do some cars tour stuff here and there if I'm not a total fish out of water, and get used to the asphalt scene of things. And with wanting to race Cup, that's definitely a very big goal. It's a huge goal. So I think the more I race, I'm pretty confident with myself that the more I race consistently, the better I will be. Because if you look at like 2019, when I raced a bunch, practiced a bunch, I went and won 9 races in a championship. So when I can race very consistently, practice consistently, I know I can be good. So I think as I get sponsors, get growing, all that kind of fun stuff, I'll be able to prove myself and hopefully start moving up in the ranks.
Well, hey, practice makes perfect, and you mentioned
Oh, yeah.
sponsorships, such a big deal. Where can any potential sponsors, companies, anybody like that, anybody looking to support you in your career, reach out to you and give you some help?
Yeah, so I'm a big LinkedIn girly, so I use LinkedIn a bunch to connect with people, and then also I have my website. There's a submission form I think it's in the contact page, and there's also my email. So my email's at the bottom. You can email me, contact me on my website, follow me on Instagram at Laci Ferno 67. All my social media is the same, so I'm on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, X, not Twitter, and yeah, so pretty much all the social medias. So yeah.
Great to know where we can find you, and I have a feeling it's not going to be that hard to find you in a few years, because I have a feeling we're going to be hearing a lot about you, a lot of great young drivers like yourself rising up through the ranks, and you started on dirt. Your goal is to make it to Cup. We'll see if you can make it there. Laci, thank you so much for joining the show, and best of luck for you and all your racing ventures moving forward.
Yeah, thank you for having me on.